Hello everybody and welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you a little bit about how to customize your Rollup Control custom metadata records within Apex Rollup so that you can see things like advanced logging within the package in the event that you ever need to do troubleshooting, so that you can update the batch size for full recalculation rollups when they are run, so you can update things like how many parent rows are updated in any given transaction. And I'll go over the reasons for which you would want to do something like that. So first, we're going to step back to the account that we've been working with. And I am now looking to trigger a rollup for a certain keyword on opportunity. And the keyword that I would like to trigger on in order to have this flag be set to true is needs analysis in the stage name. However, I'm finding that when I click recalculate rollups, I'm not getting any results in this checkbox, and I'm not exactly sure why. So I'm going to step in and investigate exactly what's going on with these opportunities. So I could have sworn when I came in here before that I updated this opportunity stage name to needs analysis. However, when I go back to the account and I click recalculate rollups, the checkbox still isn't flagged. And so I'm finding myself in this position where I need to see exactly what's going on inside of Apex Rollup to understand if there's a problem with something that I'm doing, or if it's a problem that needs to be reported as a bug to me on Apex Rollup's GitHub page. So let's dive in and take a look at exactly what's going on. So to get started, I'm going to go back to my custom metadata types. You can see here I'm in the rollup record already that should be getting the checkbox field does op name contain keyword flip to true, because we're looking for a stage name like needs analysis, but that's not happening. So I'm going to go back to my Rollup Control record, and again, for this example, I'm going to be using the org default record that ships with Apex Rollup, but if you have other Rollup controls that you're using for specific rollups, you're going to want to do this on the Rollup control associated with the rollup that you're trying to debug. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to enable this flag, is rollup logging enabled. Now I'm going to go back to my account page and I'm going to open up the Salesforce developer console. And I'm going to keep this in the background for a second as I rerun through this experiment to see exactly what's going on. So when you come back to this opportunity, again, I could have sworn that I had updated the stage name to needs analysis. And when I do that now, you can see that I have a log that's been generated. So if I toggle this debug only flag in the log, I'm going to go through and take a look at exactly what's going on when I'm making this opportunity update. Now there's a lot of information included in these logs, like the version of Apex Rollup that's running in your org at the moment, what the current rollup control is, including whether or not is rollup logging enabled. But crucially, for the purposes of what I'm trying to do right now, I want to look at this part of the log, which is a printout of the children records that have been passed to Apex Rollup, as well as for updates, another property called old calc items. So between calc items and old calc items, I want to take a look at the stage name. And curiously here, I can see now why my account hasn't been updated. It's reporting the stage name still as being third, which is what I was trying to update originally on the opportunity. But when I look at the stage name between the new version of the record and the old version of the record, they're unchanged. So now I know, okay, there's a problem here it doesn't look like it's a problem within Apex Rollup. Actually, Apex Rollup seems to be doing the right thing in this case, which is not updating the parent because there hasn't been an actual change that it can detect as far as what's trying to be rolled up. So I need to go back and take a look at what's going on in my opportunity trigger. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to take a look, and immediately I'm going to see that now there's this new section of code that's been added that is overriding what I expected I was going to be doing when updating the stage name on any individual opportunity. So maybe this was placed here, someone was testing something else that I wasn't aware of happened. Doesn't matter, I need to get rid of it. So we're going to return to the original state for this trigger without that offending piece of code, which is updating the stage name automatically. And when I go back to the account, if I now go and update this opportunity, I'm going to change the stage name back to needs analysis and update it. Come back here, refresh the page. I'm going to see that the flag has properly been updated to true. And if I were to go and look at the log that's been generated for Apex Rollup, now there's a lot more information in here. There's going to be sections about whether or not additional items were necessary in order to check for a given rollup operation that every possible other child record, not just the one that's been updated, meets some criteria, which is necessary for rollup operations like min and max. And you can get a really great view of what the parent record looked like, for example, prior to rolling up and then after rolling up. And in this specific case here, we can see that in the prior to rolling up, the does op name contain keyword flag was false. Now it's been set to true. So I get all of this rich information in the log that can help me to identify, okay, is this a problem within my Salesforce org, or is this a problem with Apex Rollup? So I really like to use these logs when helping people to identify issues. And in fact, you can use them, you can send them to me on GitHub or through email in the event that you do have a problem that you'd like to have me look at. Sometimes there are legitimately problems that need to be addressed. We had a recent one come up with a user earlier this week, and it was very easy and quick to find what the actual problem was because the log basically contains all of the information that one would need in order to figure out what the problem is. So that is how you can use rollup logging. I would also plug the Nebula Logger plugin for Apex Rollup, which is available on the GitHub README in the plugins section. So if you are already using Nebula Logger, you can install a second very small package for Apex Rollup that then ends up creating logs in Nebula Logger when you have that is logging enabled flag set on your Rollup Control record. So now I'm going to flip this back to false, but can't go another video without talking about Nebula Logger because it's hands down the best logging framework available for Salesforce. And as a result, while I also have a smaller custom logging solution that you can install a plugin for, if you need something that's going to be persisted to custom objects where then you can go look at the records, in addition to what you're seeing here, which already ships with Apex Rollup, the support for the out-of-the-box Apex log functionality. But again, for almost anybody, I would recommend that if you already are using Nebula Logger elsewhere, you should be installing the Nebula Logger adapter plugin for Apex Rollup. I use it heavily. We use it in our day jobs heavily as well to get really rich information about what's going on in our applications, and especially for operations in Apex Rollup, for example, like large batch jobs that are being recalculated, having the ability to persist that data to records is an enormous opportunity to be able to go in and look at exactly what's happening after the fact, because as you may be aware, if you've ever used the Apex log that we're looking at, for example, they have a maximum file size. There's only a certain amount of them that you can have open or created at any given time. You have to more carefully manage your resources when it comes to using this particular kind of logging. So I like to use this for one-off problems where I know it's going to be easy to go in and investigate. But for larger processes and things that are ongoing throughout the day, a lot of the times integrations where records are being updated without humans actually touching records, I can't say enough good things about using the Nebula Logger plugin for Apex Rollup. So that is the Rollup logging enabled flag functionality on the Rollup Control records. Two of the other fields that I did want to talk about for people here is the batch chunk size and the max parent rows updated at once. And the reason that I want to call these out in particular is because when Apex Rollup is running, it's part of your org's limits. So, for example, in a single update that's happening synchronously when a user performs an action or a API integration updates a record, you have the 10-second CPU time limit, for example. Now, that is typically fine even with a large number of records that are being updated, but sometimes it's not fine if you have really fine-grained triggers, if you have really fine-grained automation, some of which requires really intensive work for single records, then you're going to find in particular that these two values may need to be lowered. And in some instances, they may need to be lowered to exactly what the existing limit is for the triggerable chunks through which records are passed to flow in Apex, which is 200 in any Salesforce org. So at that size, you're operating very safely within the Apex and Salesforce limits because that's already something that's provided by part of the platform. And as long as you are building bulk safe triggers and bulk safe record triggered flows, 200 should be an absolutely fine size for most operations. Now I have these values set to much larger defaults because in many orgs, you may not have any other kind of automation in play other than Apex Rollup, at which point things should be running relatively quickly. There should be no concern about some kind of timeout in a trigger, for example, before Apex Rollup goes to perform the calculation, which happens outside of the trigger. It happens asynchronously, unless you, again, if you've seen the full recalculation walkthrough, unless you have a Rollup control set to synchronous rollup. And if you're using the various pieces of state that is represented by the numbers in this scalability section, you should have no problems running over any kind of Salesforce limits in your Salesforce org while using Apex Rollup. There may be times, for example, with large full recalculation runs with tons of automation where you do, again, need to end up tweaking something like the batch chunk size. That also I can talk about how this max lookup rows before batching figure is used. So if you have less than, for example, 3,000 parent records, by default, Apex Rollup is going to respect this should run as drop down and use a queuable to perform either a full recalculation or something like a single record being updated, that recalculation in Apex Rollup. Once you start to have things like scheduled jobs that are calling Apex Rollup or full recalculations that are kicked off from within the full recalculation rollup application, that's when this 3,000 number is going to come into play. So once you have those 3,000 plus parent records, Apex Rollup says, okay, this is really a situation that's more suitable for a batch process. I'm going to run this as a batch. so that I can try to respect the Salesforce limits as much as possible within any given transaction and update. So I think that's all for today. That's a couple of the fields on Rollup Control. It's how you can utilize these fields to easily tailor Apex Rollup to the constraints within your particular Salesforce org. And I just want to thank you for coming along with me on this journey. I hope this video has been helpful. I'm going to try to continue to make these videos pointing out features like this in Apex Rollup that help you to declaratively update pieces of the metadata associated with how Apex Rollup automatically scales with your org. So thank you so much again for watching, and I hope this was helpful.